I need to start by saying that that for me it's a privilege. Yariv was saying that he was very grateful to, when I immediately replied that, yes, of course, I'd come to Tel Aviv to speak at your conference. I have to say that to me, that to me the privilege is for Yariv to have called me and to be here to show the support that many of us have in the diaspora for what's happening in Israel. It would be it's easier for me as a Jew to say that, but I think I am even more privileged to have my colleague Gabor Schreier, who is not Jewish, our Chief Creative Officer, that immediately, I have to say, I don't know whether he was immediately or even before I said yes, that he would come along with me and spend a few days here. And our dear friend Gabi Salinas, whom I'm known for about 15 years or so, who's an expert in brand valuation and brand strategy, that she accepted to come. I think it's really, really important to be here. Of course, it's wonderful that other people will come and join via Zoom. Obviously, sharing the knowledge and sharing what we have to say and our experience is it's super interesting, always interesting, but being here says something. And I really wanted to start by saying that I do hope that those that are not with us come back very soon, and that all this tragedy ends as soon as hopefully possible. Yes, I started Saffron with Wally 23 years ago. Before starting Saffron, I actually worked with Wally for 10 years at the company he had founded in 1965, Wolf Hollins. So Wally and I really got together, had been working together for a very long time at Wolf Hollins. When Wolf Hollins was sold to Omnicom, I approached him and said, listen, Wally, I don't really want to work for Omnicom. Why don't we, and I want to start my own brand agency. I have some money, which I will invest. My wife supports me. And Wally said, well, let's do it together. So in 2001, we started in London and Madrid. Why London and Madrid? Because Wally lived in London and I live in Madrid. Not because of anything to do with the Spanish market. Or if I lived in Helsinki, it would have been London and Helsinki. Nothing to do with the destinations. We called ourselves Saffron. And I think the reason why we called ourselves Saffron has a lot to do with what I'm going to be talking to you today. We called ourselves Saffron because a tiny little bit of saffron transforms. We know this in Spain because those of you that have been to Spain or that have been to Spanish restaurant have tried the paella. And the paella, if you look at it, is a lot of rice with some saffron. And saffron has the capability of transforming a bowl of white rice into, let's say, a lovely paella. But a tiny little bit of saffron actually transforms, which is what we do. What we do is helping organizations in their transformation, when they go through a change. As I was putting together this deck with the help of Gabor, we were clear that I didn't want to talk about super profound marketing blurb that to give you the impression that I am a very intelligent guy and I am a very knowledgeable person and I know everything and you know nothing. No. The idea today is for you to talk about us, about what brands do to us, about the deepest psychological impact that brands have, and what makes a brand successful and what doesn't make a brand successful. We all remember the first kiss. We all remember how she smelled, or he smelled. Now you have to be, or it smelled. We all remember the first time we went to Paris, or the first time we saw a Van Gogh. And memory of some particular things, when we listen to the first 3 seconds of a song, most of us immediately recognize that song. A lot of the stuff that happens with us in our brain has to do with memory. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about memorability. Memorability for us is the trick for a brand to be successful. There's 3 things that define us. One is that we work as one. Yes, we have a number of offices. We have one in London, one in Madrid. We have a small one in Vienna to cater for our German-speaking clients. Our relationship in Sao Paulo ended. It doesn't matter. We have a presence in Riyadh, not because we anything that we love the desert or anything like that, but because there's a hell of a lot of work in Saudi Arabia, and we're there to capitalize on it. There's nothing strategic behind it. It's just a lot of money there. And what I want to do is I want to use the money of the Arabs to invest in some interesting stuff. And that interesting stuff could be maybe Tokyo, where we started and we have a little seed, and we are really working with a client now and trying to develop more stuff. Another thing we are is natively global. Someone said that we were born in 2 cities at the same time. And what really makes us special and what really have us being attractive to so global companies is that we don't come with an Anglo-Saxon approach to things. Most of our competitors are London-based, London-centric, or New York-based, New York-centric, or San Francisco-based, San Francisco-centric. And their view of the world is very London-based, or is very San Francisco-based, or very New York-based. We don't do this by definition. That's why what we're doing is we're leveraging on the fact that, say, half of us live in a Mediterranean country with sun and sangria, and half of us live in an Atlantic country with rain and beer and fish and chips. The combination, and some of us live in a country with schnitzel, that I only learned last night that you have on Friday night, because I always have fish for Friday. I happen to be a Sephardic, so those of you that are Ashkenazi, I learned that you have Wiener Schnitzel Friday night. Oh, what a surprise. I mean, you always learn something. So we combine the schnitzel with the fish and chips and with the paella to create something which is an approach that I call multicultural, that I call post-colonial. And our approach to the world is an approach that actually works because the world is not anymore an imperial world. We were born independent, we continue being independent, and we are fiercely independent. We believe that independence gives us a freedom of really having no obligation to say something or the other. We say what we believe the clients need to hear. And the last thing is that we are really very much about change. Because someone asked me one day, so tell me, what are your industries of expertise? And what I said is, my industries of expertise is change. Because clients call us when change happens. And brand is a catalyst for change. It's delusional to pretend to know more about financial services than a CEO of a bank. When I meet the CEO of a telecoms organization, I cannot come and tell him how to run a telco. I can come and tell him about the brand of a telco. I probably know more about brand and branding than he does, but I know nothing about the automotive industry compared to what the CEO, the CMO of a car company does. What we know is that at the end of the day, change happens in a certain type of industries. So there's a lot of work now in energy, there's a lot of work now in tourism, there's a lot of work now in media, there's a lot of work now in financial services, there's of course a lot of work now in tech. So at the end of the day, you end up knowing a little bit about a certain type of industries. But what we really know about is change. Change in a world that is like this. I remember reading a book about the Middle Ages that said that someone in the Middle Ages could not stand the noise of the 21st century. And someone of the 21st century could not stand the smell of the Middle Ages. Well, someone of the Middle Ages could not stand living in a world like this. But we've gotten used to it. We've gotten used to it so much that we all sign up to Instagram and we enjoy, or TikTok, and we enjoy being tortured by all these bloody brands telling us how wonderful they are. How wonderful they are, knowing that everything they tell us and show us is fake. Knowing that we live in a post-truth world. A post-truth world that is now emphasized by the beauty of ChatGPT and AI. And now everything is AI. Everything is AI to make us believe some time ago that this photo was a true photo. Or this poor Pope, was really having a bad time in the winter, so he had to wear this. Or where our friends, some hackers out of St. Petersburg, let the world know that King Charles passed away because of his cancer. All fake. But we love it. We love it so much that when they sell us this, we know they're going to give us this. And we still do it and love it. So in such a world, what we believe that there's light at the end. And we've started producing a number of events and a number of articles and a number of stuff to do called Into the Bright. I want to talk about something that I'm going to read from here, which is an illusion. What is an illusion? An illusion is a misinterpretation or misperception of a real external stimulus, the result of a combination of poor perceptual clarity, a deception of the senses. The few slides I showed you before had to do with this, with an illusion. My mother tongue is Spanish. And the beauty about Spanish, sometimes, is that we have different meanings for similar words. So ilusión in Spanish, illusion in English, has two meanings. One is exactly the same meaning that we have in English, a misperception or misinterpretation. Eso es una ilusión. Or a pleasant emotion that a person feels when thinking in anticipation of something he or she likes. Tengo la ilusión de ver esto. A pleasant emotion that a person feels when thinking in anticipation of something that he or she likes. And the hope of this fulfillment seems particularly attractive. At the end of the day, we're talking about the promise. People can sell you a promise. We've been here before. And people, like us, can buy a promise. I believe in the promise. And there's a big tension between selling and buying. And between the selling and the buying, for it to happen, trust needs to be there. I don't think none of us trust this guy. And I don't think he sells many Chevrolets for $495. But when they tell us in a particular way, we seem to trust whatever they tell us. And this trust is encapsulated in a brand. A brand that really promises something like, in a world of Comic Sans, welcome to Helvetica. Or, dear person who played sorry 42 times on Valentine's Day, what did you do? You don't need a logo to know that Spotify is signing this ad. Or this genius to share with us the introduction of Mac delivery. We all know that this is Lada. No, not Lada. We all know that Volvo capitalized on security and safety. And since 1959, everything to do with security or safety has to do with Volvo. And this is a wonderful example that we created. Of course, it's fake. I needed to have something fake. Of course, it's fake. But it's something that we created 18 years ago. Gabor and I were working together to put together a presentation, and we were talking about the power of a brand. And we said, we're going to do something to mesmerize people. And I told people, close your eyes. You've been to an Apple store, you use a Mac, you use an iPhone, you use this and that. Close your door, close your eyes, and think of the iHotel. How would you imagine it? And people started saying, well, it would have an aluminum-clad entrance. It would have an Apple. The entry, the reception area would be super clean. Everything would be different. It won't be cheap. It won't be. The power of trust in a brand allows us to really imagine what the iHotel would be like. And if one day Tim Cook decides to open a hotel, probably we will be right in what he will be doing. At the end of the day, brands inevitably are the consequence of an experience. And here's where we're getting into the psychology of it. I remember being in a conference in Bogota when this woman, senior VP of IBM, said something which was incredibly interesting for me. The last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience they want everywhere. So if I had a good service at a Starbucks, I expect that when I go to my doctor, I get the same service. Because that's the standard in experience in service organizations that I've been used to. Anyone, anywhere, everywhere. So companies react in a fascinating way, which is, if I have to do this, let's create the same thing. Or look at the fashion industry. If I have a logo, flatten it. And every logo now is a flat logo. And every car now looks like the same car. And every experience on our iPhones look exactly the same, day or night. And every iPhone or smartphone is the same. You walk into the shop, and it's all bloody light furniture, light wood. You want to sell something, unless it's light wood, you cannot sell it, according to some people. And you go to an office, unless you have spheric bulbs or spheric lamps, you're not in an office. You have to be cool, and the offices are very important. And look at the furniture. Any fucking office you go anywhere in the world, any one of us, is exactly the same fucking office. Everything to anyone means nothing to nobody. We've always said that every organization is the same 95% of the times, and there's only a 5% difference that really makes us special. Our job is to make this 5% really, really stand out. So when we go to the cars, suddenly we see a different one. And most people would say, I'm going to settle for different. Different, if I'm different, I'm good. Don't settle for different, because different is not enough. What's enough is memorable. Why will I remember this car? Not because it's different, because a Prius in pink is also different from a Prius in white. A Kia in burgundy with a convertible thing is different. The other day, I was in London on a rainy day, and I bumped into, by the way, Gabor and I were very impressed to walk through a Bentley showroom last night. Wow, you're really rich here in Netzlia, or over there in Netzlia. How many Bentleys do they say a year? Anyway, I bumped into a Rolls Royce, which was velvet. Obviously with a KSA. I don't know whether it was KSA or Qatar plate, but it doesn't matter. It was all the same. How on earth do you have a Rolls Royce, a velvet Rolls Royce? Velvet, I don't mean the color. I mean, I touched it, and it was velvet. It rains. What are you going to do with that Rolls Royce when it rains? Well, that's different. Maybe memorable, but that's different. And what I really want to say today that this is not a brand. These are the guidelines that we developed for Vueling, an airline that probably you know, it's a low-cost airline that really revolutionized the low-cost industry in Europe. What's really interesting about Vueling is not the name or the visual expression or the livery. What's a brand is the way we all experienced Vueling before it was bought by Iberia. Obviously, when Iberia bought it, the whole thing disappeared. Which is having David Guetta on the plane, or having promoting different brands inside the plane, or creating an experience. So taking people that took a Vueling flight were looking forward to a different special experience. Are you familiar with a Japanese artist called Yayoi Kusama? Yayoi Kusama is a schizophrenic, over 90-year-old woman, incredibly genius. She became very popular last year because she developed a co-branding exercise with Louis Vuitton, and it was incredibly famous. Yayoi Kusama is fantastic. She is mad, but she creates incredible. Most artists are mad, but and she has a museum in Tokyo. This is the entrance of the Yayoi Kusama Museum in Tokyo. And as you probably remember, everything about Yayoi Kusama is dots and different colors. And we say that brand is the promise of an experience delivered. You walk, and yes, you walk into a room. This is a bedroom. And you see it's full of dots, and that's super interesting. And you got a promise, and is this what the experience you get? But you deliver it, and this is me and my wife inside that room, and we will never forget how impressed we were when we were there. This is a brand. Yayoi Kusama becomes a brand because her promise of an experience gets delivered. And that becomes memorable brands. And strong brands are memorable brands. And here you have some examples, 73 more. Some stats that people will find it super interesting. Memorability is something that actually helps us convey the idea of why brands are successful. And how do you build memorable brands? Well, we've come up through some research and some of our own experience with 6 traits that help brands become memorable. And what I'm going to try to do is to give you some examples with some of our clients of whether this is true or not. One, it makes me feel something. Like when Anna and I walk into the Yayuko-sama bedroom. It gets my attention, the Tesla car. It tells a great story. It's inclusive. It happens. It's not something that happens once in a blue moon. And every time I see it, there's a certain degree of familiarity to it. So it's all about emotion, attention, a story, a narrative that you take. You get involved with it. There's a certain degree of repetition and a certain element of consistency in what you do. RIA Money Transfer is the world's second largest money transfer organization after Western Europe. Western Union. Sorry. We worked with them because they were acquiring another company, they were integrating different businesses, and we developed a new positioning and a new brand that we could leave it there. But what was really, really powerful about RIA was the emotion that we conveyed of what RIA allows you to do.
I left my home, my family, and my country to follow my dreams. The only thing I had was my pair of magic scissors. It was really hard at first. I was on the verge of giving up when a customer came into the shop. It was Neymar, the Atletico de Madrid player. And he said, if you believe and work hard, you can do it. He brought me a Herrera who told me, never stop believing. And I kept cutting hair with my magic scissors. Then Condovia and Luis Suarez came in and reminded me, one match at a time. My dream started to come true. And thanks to RIA, I was able to share with my people. Joao Felix and Jimenez came in after, and I was able to keep sending little pieces of my dreams across the ocean. I never liked football, but I became an Atletico supporter because of their fighting spirit. Ya tú sabes.
Attention. Here, there's something quite important that you need to achieve when you really want to make a brand memorable. And the best example for us to share with you is the work we've done for the V&A, for the Victoria and Albert Museum, that, as you know, is the Museum of Decorative Arts in London that has evolved to a point of creating a stamp, super powerful stamp, developed by Alan Fletcher. The idea, when they asked us to work with them, was not to touch the Alan Fletcher stamp, the logo, but to give life to the V&A brand. And through this concept of ingenuity and imagination, we developed a whole system when the brand became super empathetic with either the exhibitions that we're hosting or the visitors or what was going on in the world. Grabbing the attention of anyone that would come there. So you go to Brompton Road today, and although you continue seeing the same V&A developed by Alan Fletcher, the V and the A might change color, might mutate around the idea of Winnie the Pooh because you're talking of some particular thing, by really getting to some specific decorative arts exhibition that is going on there, fashion or what have you. That to grasp your attention. Storytelling. This is something quite interesting and quite powerful. A client that we've worked with for about 3 years that is one of the clients that makes our team most proud of. I don't know whether you've noticed, but this woman doesn't have a leg. And there's about 1.3 billion people across the world that live with some sort of disability. This is 1 in 7 people. And believe it or not, disabled people or differently able people are the largest marginalized group. They're twice as likely to be unemployed. They're underrepresented. And they're a much easier target for discrimination than the rest of us. There's an initiative that was started by a lady that is blind called Caroline Kaisei, and she created something called the Valuable 500. Caroline implied that we had one of the most challenging jobs we ever had, which was, let's develop a brand for a blind person. Her point is that a CEO can do in days what governments can do in years, and she's right, and we know this. She says that appeal on their egos, if we appeal on their egos, we can appeal on their wallets. And if we can unlock the potential of people with disabilities to accelerate inclusion and innovation. So her target was to create an organization that eventually became a charity, but at the beginning it wasn't a charity, with the top 500 companies that would add to about 22 million employees in 40 countries, 64 sectors, that would contribute financially to activities for inclusion. And we developed something as powerful as this sentence. Disability is our business. Enough is enough. Join the inclusion revolution. No more excuses. And I hope you can hear what she says here on the right. If you see the top right,
this is what I saw. Because you know the way I see things, like I see images of things that will come. This is what I saw. And I love it.
No, Caroline. So sorry, you should cry, Jess. You should be absolutely so fucking proud. And all of
This is what Saffron was. This is why we chose you. It's beautiful.
well, you can imagine when you hear this person saying, this is why I hired Saffron for, crying. And when she says, this is what I saw, she has like a 3% capacity to see. So she has a very special glasses and she has to get stuff like close as that. And it was quite incredible. I mean, and we continued working with them, and it's quite a fascinating job for everybody at Saffron. And we're all very proud of having been working with them for such a long time. Involvement is how can you create your brand as a tool for engaging other organizations or even your people. A1 is the result of the merger of two organizations in Austria. One is Telekom Austria, and the other one is A1, the mobile operator. When we won the pitch because we thought that each of us has a different relationship with our handset. We use our handset for different things because we're different people. So we developed the possibility of having each of us a different brand because we're all different. We developed a tool that every employee, for example, could create their own A's and own them. Eventually, they found it was a bit too much, so they asked us to develop a number of A's. And we developed a number of A's, like it was incredibly, this is the launch. These are some of the A's that were developed. quite interesting because you could see how sponsorship could be developed, and you could see brands sharing their sponsorship through A1, the company, by mimetizing the A with the colors or the skin of the brand. With time, A1, that had operations in a number of Central European countries, decided that the power of, with different names, decided that the power of A1, the brand, was such that every subsidiary should adopt the A1 brand. And so it happened. They were sold to a Mexican operator, and eventually the Mexican operator was scared of having too many versions of the A, so they asked us to create a certain degree of homogenization, which we hated, but at the end of the day, this is the way it works. This is how it was before, and this is how it is today. Incredibly successful and incredible approach to get involvement for every subsidiary. Repetition is one of our classic clients. You won't recall this. Maybe you do. When YouTube approached us in 2015, they say that we won the pitch because in the very first meeting, they asked us what we thought about YouTube, and I said it was the world's largest collection of vomit. The CMO almost fired me, but the team that were going to be responsible for the rebrand loved us and gave us a job. Obviously, I'm making a very long story almost through an anecdote because we won the job because of the incredible work that Gabor and his team had produced. The problem that YouTube had when they hired us was that it was actually the world's largest repository of videos. And when you have 100,000 hours of videos uploaded every day, chaos is only but inevitable. I am an engineer by training, and nobody's perfect. And the second law of thermodynamics says that in an ever-expanding world, chaos is inevitable. That's a law of nature. And unless we are God, and we're not God, we cannot change the laws of nature. So YouTube were obviously aware that they are an ever-expanding universe because they get 100,000 hours of videos uploaded every day. So that universe needed some certain degree of order. And what we tried to develop was an architecture for you. First, a sense of an organization. You cannot just be the world's largest repository of videos. You have to stand for something. And when we started looking at YouTube, we realized that YouTube has a lot to do with cultures and communities. And depending on what sort of interests you have, you go to YouTube to watch them. So if you had Metallica, or you had hard rock, and you like whatever, you always go to YouTube to watch that particular music. If you like political affairs, you go to YouTube to watch people talking about political affairs. If you like football, you go to YouTube to watch the last goals that Maradona or whatever, or Messi scored. If you like X, Y, or if you like Cats, you go to YouTube to watch Cats. Or if you like garage doors opening or closing, which was one of the favorites 10, 15 years ago, you go to YouTube to watch it. So we created a certain number of communities that actually had a particular way through YouTube. To do this, it all started with redeveloping and making them own something that it's a universal element, which is the play button. So starting with the play button, we developed a typeface that actually created and developed the whole thing. With that simple typeface, we developed different patterns for different themes and different channels that started little by little to create a certain order within this ever-expanding chaos. Quite successful, as we all know. Another one, as I said, is consistency. And consistency, what I'd love to share with you is Meta. Obviously, Meta is a very large client of ours. We continue working with them. We started working with them when Mark Zuckerberg decided that Facebook could not be, the blue app could not be seen as the owner of Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger and all the rest of it. And he wanted to create a sense of belonging around something. That something we recommended not to be called Facebook. He said, no, Facebook is very close to my heart. You have to call it Facebook, because if you don't call it Facebook, I don't know whether you ever met Mark Zuckerberg. Probably you haven't. It's like shaking the hand of this mic. Have you ever wore a snake on you? You know, when you go to Thailand, they put a boa onto you, and it's because it's well, it's similar. Anyway. So we created Facebook Inc. And it took us 2 years, which was wonderful because it was the Facebook team is absolutely amazing. The quality of the people, the sophistication, the quality of the design that they have, the talent is amazing. And when Facebook Inc. launches, we get a call and they say, listen, we need you to pitch, because Facebook asks you to pitch for everything new, for the rebrand of Facebook Reality Labs, which was the subsidiary of Facebook that dealt with virtual reality and augmented reality and AI and everything. It was super exciting. We pitched for it and we won the pitch. 3 days after, they call us and they say, 6 people only know about this. This is not about Facebook Reality Labs. This is about the whole organization. This is the rebrand of Facebook Inc. And Mark has decided on 3 names. Everything is Mark in Facebook. Okay? You go to Menlo Park and the whole thing is, he built this. He created this space. This is the road. It's like walking. Jesus and Mark they were both Jews, so that must be it. So Mark decided on a name, and we were given a name, and what we had to do was build a story and build a whole universe around this name. And the whole thing, I have to say, was built in collaboration with CreativeX, which is an incredible team that Meta has in-house of designers. And it was all about centrality. What was the challenge to develop a brand expression for Meta is that Meta is a brand that is not going to live flat. It's a brand that is going to be in three-dimensional world. And everything to do with Meta, the typography had to live tridimensionally, the images had to move in a particular way, and it was all about creating a world that, before I get to this, where the way you approached the motion that was fundamental in the whole brand expression was going to live had to go about this idea of centrality. The next thing I'm going to show you is a video that is quite interesting because it's a video that shows, on the one hand, the potential of the metaverse, and on the other hand, I ask you to please observe the way the video is recorded and how the camera moves. and how the style of centrality is there.
What you're seeing today is a successful eye surgery. And this, the dedicated hours of virtual training that made it happen.
The RPOS mRNA.
Academic advancements are being achieved every day through collaborative hands-on learning. Upskilling careers, now made possible through immersive environments. Crucial engine maintenance, perfected in simulated training settings. Coming back from an injury with training designed to sharpen skills and improve performance. These are the ways the metaverse is being used every day, today.
So with this, and hoping that I have conveyed this idea of memorability as the most powerful trait that successful brands have, I'll leave it to you. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you had a good time.